Good morning and many thanks for watching KTN. Welcome to the special coverage of the funeral ceremony of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, an ODM party leader who died in India while undergoing treatment. The footage that you're seeing right now is courtesy of NTV, and those are Parliament buildings where the body of the former Prime Minister has been taken at the moment. Military and security officers have taken charge of the same as we continue to follow up on this process of a man considered to be an enigma, a father of politics, professor of politics in the country, a man who always put the country first, a man who's been eulogized and remembered of being a statesman, a man who always created bridges to be able to see the country move forward. He will be remembered for his fight and struggle for multi-party democracy in the country, that is in the 90s. In the 2000s, he will be remembered of saying Kibaki Tosha, which went forward to see former President Moi Kibaki form government in 2007 in that controversial election that saw Kenyans fight each other and thousands die. He then again chose to sit at the table, and that is when another government was formed between him and Moi Kibaki that saw him become the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. He has run for office a record 5 times. He has not been declared president, sometimes a controversial man, but that notwithstanding, he considered himself the people's president. That is the headline on Kenya's bold newspaper today, the people's president, and this is reminiscing how he was received at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport yesterday. The flight was tracked by a record over 50,000 people from Mumbai to Kenya. KQ Flight 203 was later christened Rao 001. Remember, this is a state funeral. The country is mourning. Today was declared a public holiday by Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen in honor of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Those are live images coming to you from the Parliament buildings. As you can see, the military are there doing what they do best, ensuring security. Raila Odinga's body is at Parliament buildings in Nairobi. He will be remembered for having served at Parliament for many years. But let's just touch base with our reporter, Grace Nganga, who is at Parliament. Good morning, Grace. We see a beehive of activities taking place at Parliament buildings. Raila Odinga's body is the military there to ensure security is tight. But what's the mood like, Grace?
Morning to you, Dennis Aseto. Rightfully said there. We are here live at Parliament buildings here in Nairobi, and the situation is beefed up. The body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is said to be here. But remember, he was one of the longest serving members of Parliament. Remember, he served as a Langata Member of Parliament from 1992 to 2013. Of course, the residents of Langata felt that loss of the former Member of Parliament, like I said, one of the longest serving members of Parliament. And the situation is beefed up. The situation is really, really tight here. It's not as easy as you think to even make your way through the Parliament buildings. But of course, they're just trying to ensure that the situation that was witnessed yesterday, as you can remember, when the body was he was supposed to lay in state in Parliament yesterday, and the schedule had to be changed because of how the situation was at yesterday here at Parliament buildings. Youth were trying to make their way into Parliament, just to try as much as possible to see or to view the body of a leader that they loved so much, one their mentor, and a person that they really, really are going to miss. But today, the situation, I can tell you for a fact, may not be the same as yesterday, because the security here is not a joke. It is really, really tight. Every corner, every gate has been manned by the police officers, even inside the Parliament building as well. So, for what I can tell you really now is the security is beefed up. I don't think we're going to see any sort of security breach, because it's as tight as it can get from all corners. from all entry, from the National Assembly entry to the Senate entry, it is fully packed by policemen, or rather by the men in uniform. So like I said, we might not really experience what we saw yesterday, the security breaches, as Kenyans were trying to make their way into Parliament. I really doubt the situation will be as that today as settled because it is as tight as it can get. Remember, it is also a day that Kenyans are mourning. As much as the Cabinet Secretary Interior gave this day as a public holiday, Kenyans are still mourning their mentor, they're still mourning their leader. And I know that hundreds of them are going to be storming later on at the Nyayo National Stadium for a prayer service that is going to be held there for this man that for many years has been a mentor for many, not just the young generation, but also the old generation. I said also, just to notice that most of these members of parliament that are serving now, and also the former members of parliament, most of them went through this man. Even President William Ruto himself said that, this man has held his hand up for the longest. He has taught so many people the ways into politics. So he's a man that we are never going to be talking about politics even in his death, without mentioning the name of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. So he is a man that will be greatly missed, but he's a man that we are still going to be talking about him even in generations to come. Even with our children who did not get to meet this kind of man, we're going to be telling him the stories of a man, a legend, a mentor who stood by the people, who was a liberator. He fought for democracy that we are enjoying today. Remember, he was also part of the team of the 2010 Constitution. So his memory lingers on. His memory will be with us, will live with us for years to come. So we are just here settled. We are not yet sure what more is going to happen from here. But what we understand from the program is that there's going to be a prayer service, and all Kenyans, I'm sure, will be thronging the Nyayo National Stadium. Our reporters will be on the ground. That is Daniel Kariuki, Lennox Sengre. They will be at the Nyayo Stadium just to grace us that event of having that prayer ceremony before he is airlifted to Siaya County ahead of his burial, which is slated for this Sunday. But as I said, security is beefed up. It's not a joke. When I tell you it's not a joke, it is not a joke. It is beefed up. I'm sure they don't want any sort of security breaches here in Parliament buildings. But as we are standby here, in case of anything, we're going to be informing our viewers. But from our end here in Parliament buildings, that is majorly justice. Back to you, studio.
Thank you, Grace, for that update. And as stated, the security has been beefed up at the Parliament buildings. And one of the longest-serving members of Parliament from Kibra, Raila Odinga, served the nation. And as stated, his history remains etched in our hearts, in the country's DNA. Talk about multi-party democracy in the 90s. Talk about him being detained and going through the trenches in order to liberate the country and take the country from from single-party rule. I remembered Raila Odinga at some point said how he was in detention. His mother passed on, his brother passed on, and never had an opportunity to say goodbye to them. But all that simply because he was looking at liberating the country, Kenya, and making sure that the democracy and the freedoms that we enjoy today become a reality. He is part and parcel of the 2010 Constitution, a constitution that has been regarded to be the best in the world, one that we continue to enjoy. Talk about the freedom of expression, freedom of the media, talk about freedom to assemble and picket, all that courtesy of the 2010 Constitution that Raila Odinga was part of ensuring that it becomes a reality. Raila Odinga, at some point after the 2017 elections, he declared himself the people's president. And yesterday, that was evident. The people's president was welcomed by Kenyans from across different spheres of the society. At the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, security officers tried to deal with the people, with the supporters who were there, but at some point it was too much for the officers. We saw them breach our security, get to the taxiway where that plane was, as Raila Odinga was being taken out of the plane. And that again shows a man who was loved by many. As Grace Nganga says, rightfully so, that our children, we will have these stories to tell them. because he is a man who has made everything that we enjoy today a reality. A man who has said he is not perfect by any means, but that he always put the country first. Numerous times he decided not to follow his dreams, but decided to put the country first, compromising his position, compromising him ascending to leadership, but saying that the country is bigger than any single one of us, that we should always protect the country. Again, those are images coming to you live from the Parliament buildings. The military officers taking charge, ensuring that everything goes to plan. As Grace says, it will not be anything like what we experienced yesterday. We continue to bring you these live coverage of day 2 since Raila Odinga's body arrived in the country. And we shall be having these conversations with my guests in studio. I have Michael Were, our Wakili, in studio with me as we continue to just speak about the man Raila Odinga. Today is Kenya's bold newspaper talks of the people's president, and on the top page there we see military officers surrounded by Kenyans welcoming Raila Odinga as his body arrived in the country, and we see a pictorial of the family led by Mama Odinga, and we have Raila Jr., we have the daughter there as they view a man that just last week I was with them, a man who she called husband, a man who they called father, they called uncle, they called grandfather. Sad time not just for the family but the country. We have lost a statesman and forever etched in our hearts. You go to pages 2 and 3 as well. We have the pictorials there. President William Ruto in tow with Mama Odinga, as well as retired President Uhuru Kenyatta there, as they take a stroll at the VIP lounge at the airport. And millions of Kenyans from the office yesterday, we were just witnessing how the body was moving at the expressway. And for the very first time, you know, expressway pedestrians are not allowed. But yesterday, the people's president and his supporters, things were different. We saw that chopper outside offices as it was snaking towards Kasarani, and it was a scene to be remembered, as well as that unfortunate incident at the Kasarani when police lobbed tear gas to disperse a disorderly crowd at Kasarani. And even as we continue to mourn this man, Raila Odinga, we call upon Kenyans to do so in a respectable manner, to do so in a way that will not go against any plans, any protocols. Because as it will be remembered, Raila Odinga always championed for peace. As we remember him today, perhaps we remember him in a peaceful manner. We mourn, but we mourn in such a manner that we do not break or destroy any property. These, as Kenyans again view the body at Kasarani there, we see military officers taking charge, and Mona here shedding tears as she awaited Raila Odinga's body. And Kenyans just being Kenyans, you know, you gotta love our country, people. The Kenyans, I salute you. You know, it is a military van, and the Kenyans on top of it with the military officers just strolling down Mombasa Road, escorting the people's president, a man they loved, and Kenyans came out and showed their love for this man. We also saw Kanu chairperson Gideon Moi with President William Ruto at the airport as they waited for the body of Raila Odinga. And a sad moment there for Maurice Ogeta, who was Raila Odinga's personal bodyguard, as a very strong man who always protected this man, shed tears of pain as he saw his boss lying in a casket. Remember, he was with Mzee in India, even at the time when he collapsed. He was next to him as he rode in that ambulance towards the hospital. He was there when Mzee was announced dead. He was there even during the repatriation from India back to the country. He has been there. And even as the people came to mourn his boss, he was there. And it is a sad picture to see And the one that forever remains etched as well is that moment when Winnie Odinga descended with the father's heart, the signature heart for Raila Odinga. And we saw how she went down and gave the mother that heart. And that as well has us some significance in the Luo culture, where in the Luo culture, the lady, the last-born lady is given an opportunity to take care of the father, and the last-born son given an opportunity to take care of the the mother. And here, but Winnie Odinga had just finished her role of taking care of the man and was taking back the mantle to the mother, who would then release her of that responsibility, as other Luo rituals would take place a little bit later. As many have heard, Raila is being regarded to as Joey, and many ask, what does Joey mean? Joey means a buffalo, and that is a buffalo with its strength, with its might. When you hear that, especially among the Luo community, that is someone who's given highest honors and respect in the community. But Wakil, welcome to the show. As we just talk about the man Raila Odinga, a sad time for the country. We look at a man who, even in his death, his people are still there. A man who continues to challenge the status quo, his power still being wielded even at his death. Just what did you make of what we saw yesterday?
Thanks, Dennis, for hosting me and having me. First of all, I think it is something that has never happened, and it is something that looks not very real, because I remember us growing up, we'd never witnessed such an occurrence in life. We just had stories of people telling us how Kenyatta died and how the state was. And I think seeing the death of Raila Odinga is something that has happened in our lifetime, and is something that was beyond our expectations. What we saw yesterday as Raila Odinga's body landed is who Raila the man was. In some of his speeches, you would hear Raila say that I have a great army of people that are always behind me. That is what he meant. He didn't mean these people who are all over him, like the politicians traveling in SUVs and all that. He meant the common wananchi. What we witnessed today was now the people, his loyal supporters, people who can die for him, people who believed in his cause. So we see that he was, in maybe a word or two, I would say he was larger than life, you know. His supporters believed in him, and when you saw people break protocol at the JKIA, it's like they were not believing. It's like we can go there and now we can wake the man up and at least hear one or two words from him.
You know, it's amazing to see how Kenyans have reacted to the death of Raila Odinga. And you look at how Kenyans came out, and even sitting down with blocking the roads and telling the officers at the time, here is our plan. You have your plan, but this is our plan. You plan to use expressway. Yeah, we want you to use Mombasa Road. And there was a standoff for a very long time at the airport until an agreement was arrived at. And we saw them actually escort the remains of Raila Odinga from the airport all the way to Kasarani, and people were marching all. While I was on my way home, I overheard some conversations where a gentleman was saying people would get into a matatu, say was going to a different route, and tell the driver that the route that you're taking, that's not where we're going. Change the route and take us to Kasarani, because they wanted to be part and parcel of this historical moment. And like you've said, this is something that has happened during our time. You know, we saw the former president, Daniel Moi, and Mwai Kibaki passed on. They were buried. But Raila Odinga said, I have an army of people. It is not about the small clique, but I am for the people. I release myself to the people. And if you listen to what is being said out there, at some point during detention, when Raila Odinga had stayed away from Mama Ida and came out and straight went into politics, Mama Ida said, I have actually released him to Kenyans because his service is to Kenyans, you know. And we see how Kenyans still continue to revere this man, and it baffles us. But you look at the shoes that he's left, just how bigger shoes has he left for, especially in the political class?
Maybe what I can tell you is that Raila belonged to the people, and the people belonged to him. And we've actually seen that. Most of his meetings were very organic because he could speak the language of the people. And one thing I can say is that now that Raila is gone, I think, and I'm sure, not just think, I'm sure, it will take quite a long time to find someone who will be able to have such a kind of following, such a kind of influence in the Kenyan politics. And even seeing him, Raila as a person, it was not always about him. Because if you look deeply at our Kenyan politics, it's extremely divisive. But he is a man who came beyond his personal, feelings and what people thought is rightfully his. For instance, history will tell you in 2007 what happened, in 2013, 2017, and 2022. But he would still look at his opponents and say, look, this is just politics. It doesn't mean that you have to and put it inside you so that we cannot be able to talk and agree. You would disagree, but he believed in dialogue. So what we are seeing is a Raila of the people and the people of Raila.
Of Raila.
It's just like that. And culturally, the Luo culture and maybe the Luya culture, apart from Raila being a statesman, he also comes from somewhere. And I remember watching some videos and reading some magazines, and when Odinga died, the people had to walk with Odinga from Kisumu to his Bondo home. And Raila was part of that. And after the burial, Raila had to walk with the people from Bondo to Kisumu and then let them go. The same thing happened when Michael Omala Vijana died. So what we are saying, and maybe what I can predict, if the government is not careful, the people will take over.
From a reincarnation of a time when Mzee died back in the days. Eh?
Yeah, and even on is it Sunday or Saturday when the body is going to Kisumu? If the government is not careful, the people will take over.
Let's hope that's not the case, that the relevant protocols will be followed. But I wanted to touch base with Grace Nganga, who is at the Parliament buildings. Grace, good morning. If you can just bring us up to speed on what exactly is happening at the Parliament buildings. Is it that Raila Odinga is lying in state today because that did not happen yesterday, or just what is happening at the Parliament buildings? Because we've seen that courage there with the military and the processes in Parliament, Grace.
All right. Morning to you, Aseto. Let me say there once more to our viewers. We're here live from the Parliament buildings, and what you're seeing is the military courage that carried the body of the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and brought him here in Parliament. What we understand is that following the program that was supposed to be due yesterday, just to have a recap for our viewers, Baba was supposed to be picked from the airport, then he was supposed to be taken to Lee Funeral Home, then he was supposed to lay in state here in Parliament buildings, as is the culture of a state funeral. But that certainly did not happen yesterday because, the massive following of Raila Odinga, everyone wanted to have a piece. Everyone wanted to see, have a view of their leader as per the program that was shared by the planning committee, which is chaired by Deputy President, that is Kisure Kindiki, and from the family side, that is Oburu Odinga, that is Senator, the brother to the late Oburu Odinga. That did not happen yesterday. What we understand is this morning, the body was moved from Lee Funeral Home, and they had to go per the plan. He had to come and lay in state. What we understand is that that was the plan, and that is why the body was taken early morning from the Lee Funeral Home and brought here at Parliament buildings, where he will lay in state as per the program. Remember from what our President William Ruto said when he announced the sad passing of a former Prime Minister Raila Odinga a day ago, is that he was going to be accorded a state funeral. And of course, a part of the said funeral was laying in state, as has happened to previous leaders like former presidents, that is the late Daniel Arap Moi and also the late Moi Kibaki. So what we understand right now is that that will be accorded to him because from what our sources say that he deserves the best send-off, and he will be laying in state this morning before his body is taken to the Nyayo Stadium for the prayers. So we are here, as I said, security has been beefed up. What you're seeing there is the carriage that was carrying the body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, bringing him here to Parliament building. But earlier on, we also saw a funeral vehicle that I believe what we understand is that it's going to be carrying him now from here all the way to Nyayo Stadium for prayers before he's airlifted to Siaya, Bondo County ahead of his burial that is slated for this Sunday. So a set order can say is the plans yesterday shook a bit because as I've heard you saying in the studio, Raila Odinga was a man of the people. He was a man of the people, and we saw that yesterday. The people wanted their way. The people wanted the process to go as per their way, because according to them, Raila was their man. He was their leader. He was their mentor. And from what we saw yesterday, they say that Parliament is too small for them. They wanted a bigger space that they can all be comfortable to view the body of their loved one. So that is why they had to move, change up the program. Baba did not go to Lee Funeral Home. He did not stay here in Parliament. They went to Kasarani Stadium. Of course, there we saw what happened. So it was chaotic for a bit, but things calmed down. They were able to view the body of their leader. And it's really difficult for anyone to say that the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. That word in itself is a bit heavy for anyone, more so for some of us who are political reporters and have been covering Raila Amolo Odinga. So we are here, of course, still the country is still mourning, the nation is still mourning, we're still mourning a giant, a fallen political giant that will be remembered for years to come. He was one of the longest-serving members of Parliament from 1992 to 2013. But of course, as more unfolds are settled, we'll be getting back to you for more. But that is all for me from my end here in Parliament Buildings. Back to you, Settled Studio.
Thank you, Grace, for that update. Yes, indeed. Yesterday, the people wanted their way, but today, official government business is taking precedence. Remember, this is a state funeral, and if that is the case, then he has to be given the highest honors accorded to individuals who've been accorded that respect by the state. The reason why you see today, security is tight. The body of former Prime Minister is at the Parliament buildings going through the nation's rituals. These are the rituals that the state of Kenya is well known for and will take place because, remember, it is an honor that has been bestowed to him by none other than the President of the Republic of Kenya and the people of Kenya who gave him that opportunity. Remember, he had served this country 1992 to 2013 as Member of Parliament for Kibra, and later got into him wanting to be president under the new constitution, and that would have meant that he would not serve as a Member of Parliament, but he continues to be present in the political space. And to just take you through what we saw yesterday with Odinga handing over that Raila Odinga hat to the mother. And I'll just tell you what it's all about now. As the last-born daughter, she was given the sacred duty of caring for her father. Now she is handing that duty back to her mother. It's called Simbo Marjuogi. So that is what it is called. Now, in Luo tradition, if it were the mother who had passed, the last-born son would do the same, handing back the touch. Touch is the responsibility to the father, saying, I did my best, I gave my everything. Now, this is all according to the Luo tradition, and the last-born son would have given everything to ensure the mother's well-being. So it is the opposite. The last-born son takes care of the mother, and the last-born daughter takes care of the father. Now, the last-born daughter gives everything to ensure the father's peace. Now, Mama Ida Odinga yesterday received Mama Ida Odinga yesterday released Winnie as the father had passed on in her care. Some final rituals still await. Whether they bring blessings or burden depends on the Father's will. It is a moment of tradition that you see in the country. It is not everything is coded. It's coded language. It's coded communication that only those who understand the traditions of the Luo would understand what all those processes mean. As well as yesterday, there's something that they call teroburu. That as well is another tradition among the Luo community, especially when someone passes on, and that will continue to be seen in the Republic. So it is all about culture. I remember Raila Odinga belonged somewhere, and where he comes from, these are this is his culture, his traditions, things he associated with. So that hat yesterday being given to Mama Ida is of utmost significance, not only to the family, but to the Luo people whose traditions yesterday was being witnessed in the Republic. That's just a little summary of what we saw yesterday meant. But as Grace has said, Raila Odinga's remains are in Parliament today. Yesterday, the people had their way. Today, the nation, the government of Kenya, the military will have their way. We are here to bring you everything that is happening at the Parliament buildings, and from there, as the body will be proceeding to the mass, right? It will be proceeding to the mass at the Nyayo National Stadium, and then later it will proceed to his current home, where it will spend the night there, if I'm not wrong. That is according to the preparations that we had. But Wakili,
yes, sir.
You see, that bit of culture that is there for everyone to see, it is coded. If you know, you know. You know, these are those things where you're told, if you know, you know.
You know, yeah.
But you look at Raila Odinga, a figure that carried the country, a figure that has been respected internationally, fought for this country. But at his final moments, he is someone who his culture continues to follow him through. Just how significant is it in terms of, let's use the Swahili saying, mwacha mila ni mtumwa. Raila Odinga being Raila Odinga, still his tradition and his culture follows him till the last moment.
I think one thing we as human beings should never forget where we come from. You know, they say that charity begins at home but must not end there. You should like, if I'm a lawyer, for instance, and I transit beyond being a lawyer, I become a national figure. I do everything, because as I come from my community and go beyond, it means I'm going to meet different people, do different things, nationalism and all that. But at the end of the day, where do I belong? Where do I come from? I have my people. They have me. You know, you understand that at the end of the day, I have to go back home. Even if you, let's just say it's, even if it's symbolically or in our day-to-day life, you will come out of your house, you will go out, you will do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, where will you go? Even the leaders we have, they will tell you that I'll work for the nation, I'll do everything, but at the end of the day, I'll go back to my family. Part of your family are your people, where you come from. And we should always respect our culture. Sometimes I feel very heartbroken when I see people saying that the culture for our people does not mean anything. There's a reason why your forefathers had to start that culture. Raila being the Raila that he is, let's accord the state an opportunity to give him that befitting send-off of a statesman. But now when it comes back to his people, let the state also give its people an opportunity so that they can also have him. Because at the end of the day, he's going back to lay where his ancestors are from, where his people are, and his culture should be led to flourish. The Constitution gives us an opportunity to recognize ourselves first as a people from where you come from. But then you become one indivisible nation. So there's nothing wrong, but I feel it is good for us to keep our culture. It is good for us never to forget our culture. And if you saw Raila's life, if someone prominent in the Luo community died, you saw what used to happen. I'll also use just the example of the late Michael Omalo Kijana. You know, Raila did that culture in Omalo's funeral in Kitale. So it shows you that culture is important. And I see most of the people on the social media shocked. You know, we should travel beyond our villages and see how different people
on the other side,
on the other side. I've had an opportunity to travel widely in this country. I've had an opportunity to see how different people carry out their different cultures. I've gone to different social events, funerals, weddings, you know, name it. And I've been able to see that. So at times I do not get shocked when I see people doing things. That is their way of doing it. Respect it. Nobody has forced you to do it. You might actually disagree with it, but that is it. For instance, if you go to funerals of Luyas and Luos, you will see people crying loudly, you know, falling down, doing things, you know. Some even tear their clothes, you know, and people have to run and cover them. That's their way of mourning, you know. So when I saw people crying loudly and doing all those things when Baba's body arrived, I could relate, because I've been able to see it. And if other people don't see it that way, it's okay.
I mean, it's a country of 55 million people and different communities and different cultures.
Correct.
And as you've rightfully said, it's different cultures do things differently. And many would not understand why, you know, myself coming from this community, I've seen that happen enough times. And if you remember, even when Mama Ida was trying to talk to Raila supporters in Karen, she never told them to stop. You know, if anything, what she said is at the time was she apologized to the people. I am sorry. We did not expect this, but it has happened. She never said stop. If you realize, I remember I was present during Fidel's burial and that process. I remember I was in Karen, and even during the time, what we see now is what happened then, because the Luo culture took precedence, and that is just how things are done. And I think it really brings up the conversation on what the Constitution first are the rights that it gives us in terms of we are a people from somewhere and our cultures have been recognized by the Constitution of Kenya. And the importance of, like you've said, traveling far and wide, understanding our different cultures and just respecting it for what it is, you know. But aside from that, then, we look at a country yesterday that came to a standstill, especially Nairobi came to a standstill. And one would ask, this man Raila, what kind of power did he wield? What kind of influence did he have? And one would say, there's a saying, get to celebrate people when they are alive and not when they are dead. But one would argue this has been Raila's people throughout. Whenever he asked people to come out, they would come out. When he told people to stay at home, they would stay at home. One would say, Baba, akisema tuende forward march, ni forward march. Akisema we turn left, we turn left. And you see that has the charisma of people who supported him have always been there throughout his life. And even at his death, they're still there to say, this is our person. But I just want to look at in terms of leadership in the country and what the leaders of the country get to learn in terms of being true to your cause and never forgetting your people. Just, what's the lesson?
You know, what I would say is, one, Raila was very charismatic and very witty.
Vitendawili, eh?
Yes. That you have to give it to him. You know, he has left behind bangers that will continue to go over and over and beyond. And Raila knew what people wanted to hear. He knew what people needed to have, and he spoke their language. And that is one thing each and every politician or someone who aspires to be in leadership should learn. Go to the people. Don't let the people come to you. And that is one thing that has kept Raila very close to the people. And he would speak his mind, regardless of the consequences. He would speak his mind. And that's why you see him and I like you using Wamalwa with him together because they were, you know, like arch rivals, you know. And maybe one went beyond the other. And I think if there's an afterlife, they are probably laughing and having a chat and something like that. Wamalwa described Raila in two ways, that we have people who are Raila-phobic and Raila-maniac, you know. And yesterday we saw people who are Raila-maniac. You know, like, you love this guy, you love him with your all. Because if he would speak, he would speak. For instance, if you look at like the land question in Mombasa, when Raila would address and would tell the people, like, people want land, give them. What is the problem? So if you are a person who is having that, like the land problem, and here is a person who is saying, watu wanataka shamba, wape mashamba yao. You know, you would be inclined to love this person. And it's not just saying that, he's actually with you people and he's fighting the cause. And when you see when the Constitution of Kenya 2010 came, those were some of the issues that were addressed in the Constitution. The Land Act and all those things.
Evolution.
Yes. This is a man whose word and action go hand in hand. And I remember, let's also talk about the issue of the Mau forest. The current president then said that mvua inatoka kwa mawingu.
Yeah,
haitoki kwa miti. But Raila Odinga said, ni miti inafanya tupate mvua. And he was ready to die for it. He lost the Rift Valley to a great extent, but he did what? He was convinced, like a man of conviction. At the end of the day, when we look at the issue of the Mau forest, he was right. And it's a cause he was prepared to die for.
And one would actually argue that he lost the next elections because of the Mao issue.
Exactly.
Because I remember how it was politicized, especially by former Bomet governor Isaac Ruto, and how it became a big conversation on how this man does not want us to enjoy our land and resources. The entire conversation and resources around it. But years later, you find the next government actually implemented what Raila was pushing, Mao was protected, and we see what those initiatives that Raila was pushing for did not only just to the people of Mao, but to the ecosystem of the country and our water towers. And, you know, like when you sit back and when you just, Okari loves to use this word, when you zoom out and start approaching it slowly, you see the vision that he had, that he saw way back before anyone else. But Raila was ready to lose his friends, was ready to lose his seat for the benefit of
the greater
people of the country.
And exactly, that's what a leader should be. You know, you should not use an opportunity. Like you see, he had a choice back then to move on the other side and say, no, let's go into Mau, do what, so that he can get votes. But you see, that is not what his conscience told him. His conscience told him, this is not the right thing. And he's a politician who would not sit on the fence. He would take a side. And that is one thing, as a people, we should learn. Make a decision, whether it's good or bad. At least have a decision, have a side. Don't sit on the fence to wait and see what will happen
later.
Take
a position, kesi badai.
Yeah, take a position. Kama ni mbaya, wache. And even in some of his speeches, you would hear him say, kama ni mbaya, wache ikuwe mbaya. And that was it. So there is a lot for us to learn from Raila Odinga, the man. And I think sometimes trying to understand him is quite difficult. Because even in his death, for instance, like yesterday we were just joking and saying that, hey, yani wanapiga baba tear gas hata kama amekufa. Because you see, he's just been on the streets having tear gas and tear gas and tear gas together with his supporters. So we were like, oh, maybe wacha kule ya mwisho kabla hajaenda kwa sababu amezoea. But one thing we should always learn from his life and times is that take a stand, take a position, be a man of conviction. Do not be afraid of the consequences. Whatever it takes. As long as you are convinced that what I'm doing is correct, that is it. When he was prime minister, there are ministers he sacked because he believed they were corrupt.
Including the current president.
The current president. Yeah. Because he was convinced that was the right thing. But then, you know, we politicize the whole thing and whatever. So for even the young people, the young generation that you see right now, they have a lot of conviction.
And a lot to learn. Let us touch base with Harman Kamariki, who is at the Parliament buildings. Good morning, Harman. How are you doing? What's the situation in Parliament buildings? Anything else changed? Have you managed to be at where Raila Odinga is lying in state, Kamariki?
Thank you so much. I'm getting you live from Parliament here at the Parliament Road. Our other comrades are inside Parliament, but let me just paint a picture of what is happening here in Parliament. It is all about security. It is very tight security. We can see the chase bikes here ready to take off with the body of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to take it to Nyayo Stadium, where the celebration and the state funeral will be conducted today. But here at Parliament, it's all about security, and people are allowed to pass via the road but not go through the Parliament Road, those who are going on with their own business. We have seen about 5 police vehicles who's been here for since morning, and police are set to deal with any case of insecurity that can take place around this place. Several vehicles at all the entrances here in Parliament, just to make sure that everything moves swiftly. We were speaking to some of the Kenyans who had been here, and they say they're waiting to just see if Raila Odinga's body is here as they head to Nyayo Stadium. But some of them were told to actually vacate and head to Nyayo Stadium, where they will go to wait for the body there. Just to also let you know is that the body of Raila Odinga has been brought here, and it is inside Parliament. This is where they're going to pay their last respect to the body before it is taken to Nyayo Stadium, where Kenyans will be allowed to listen to our leaders as they speak, as they give the last respect to this amazing and this father of democracy of our country. I wouldn't go into more details, but Parliament is, anytime from now, we're being informed the body will be leaving Parliament to Nyayo Stadium. And it is a plan, and it looks like this is a well-coordinated plan from Lee Funeral Home to here. Remember, we had been informed that the body will be at Nyayo Stadium by yesterday. The procession to Parliament was made a secret by government, and the body came here as early as 6:40 a.m., and that means this is just to try and do away with crowds. If you remember yesterday when the body was supposed to be here, the crowds were too, there was a crowd here that wouldn't allow their body to actually even access Parliament. And I think that is the strategy the government used to make sure that this moves swiftly. And from here, definitely we shall be heading to Nyayo. Several leaders have come in. CSAs and even dignitaries, we have seen them come around this place as well. So we can be, we are on standby. We shall be giving you details of what is happening here, and even as we move to Nyayo Stadium for the state funeral. Thank you.
Kamariki, before I just let you go, so just so we can tell Kenyans for a fact is that they are not allowed to go to Parliament buildings to view the body of Raila Odinga, but that they should head to Nyayo National Stadium. That the process that is taking place at Parliament building is where Raila Odinga spent his time and final respects to the house that he served for a very long time, right?
Yeah, we can confidently say that no civilians are allowed here, and all Kenyans have been informed to move to Nyayo Stadium, where the funeral will be taking place. The only people that are allowed inside these building and even around the Parliament Road are dignitaries and members of Parliament, as well as leaders who are CSAs and other leaders. But if you are a civilian, you are actually directed to go to Nyayo Stadium, where the event will be taking place. So anyone who is planning to come to Parliament, that is a no, because the security officers we actually had a conversation with, they insist that this is not a civilian event. As of now, it is just to pay last respect to the former Prime Minister. And so we can confidently say that is the scenario right now at Parliament.
Kamariki, we see that there are dignitaries who are lined up there. Is this an indication that President William Ruto will be making way to Parliament buildings?
We might wait to confirm that. We can give you details after we have confirmed that. But looking at the situation here, it is highly possible that the president might be here as well. And we have seen the State House spokesperson walk in. That means there is a high possibility that the president might actually be here. And we are waiting, and we can consult and see if we can get that information and get back to you as we move on. But highly likely that the president might be here anytime from now, looking at the situation and the color of this event right at Parliament here. And remember, these chest bikes were only used by Raila Odinga when he was a prime minister, and this is now the second time they are being used in his functions. That means they are giving him the respect he was accorded while he was a prime minister as well. And so we are waiting. When the president arrives here, we shall definitely inform you at the studio, and also if we have any other development, we shall get to you as well.
Thank you, Kamariki, for that update. You see, a man who served as Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, those chest bags that you see there are what he used at the time when he served as former Prime Minister, and even at his death, we are giving him the honor, the respect that he was accorded at the time he was Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, a man who continues to wield power even at his death. You know, those are the images that we see both from the Nyayo National Stadium as the preparation continues. The military are lining up themselves, an indication that something is about to happen. The same as Parliament, as you can see, our leaders, they are lining up with an indication that something's about to happen. Whether President William Ruto will be heading there or Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki will be heading there, we are only waiting to see. But it has been confirmed that this is not a civilian affair at the Parliament buildings, that all civilians are planning to be part of today's program should head to the Nyayo National Stadium, and especially on time, because remember, once the president is there, gaining access will be a little bit difficult. So if you are planning to be part of this process, make sure that this is your time to head there before all the dignitaries and Raila Odinga's body makes its way there. Do not go to the Parliament buildings because you will not be granted access. This is information that has been given by security operators to our colleagues who are in Parliament following up on this process, because as you can see, even members of the press have not been allowed inside the Parliament buildings where the body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga is lying in state. Where the body is at, I'm not sure whether it's lying in state, but it is at the Parliament buildings. Wakili, you see, at the time, after Raila Odinga, his tenure as Prime Minister, and you look at preservation of assets that he had, you know, no one knew that even those chest bags are still there. But these are things that the state has preserved, and clear indication that it was not just any other office that was put there because apparently there was post-election violence in 2007 that he was then declared the Prime Minister, but that it was a significant office that shaped the history of this country, and that even today we see the perks that he enjoyed at the time are still being given to him at this time. Just how significant is that?
First of all, you know, as a country, we only had two prime ministers.
Yes.
The late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was prime minister before he became president, and then now Raila Odinga. You see, the 2007 disputed election, to date, they always say that there was no clear winner. Even the former ECK chairman, before he died, Kivuti, said that sijui nani alishinda, nilikata kauli mara moja poa na nikatangaza Kibaki mshindi. But from some quarters we've seen on the media, some people actually saying that it is true, Raila won the elections, but we had to engineer some things. Not my words, but their words. They have said on live camera as we saw them. So the creation of this office, for me, I think somehow was also a sign of showing that we can disagree on many things, but we can at least agree on a way forward. Because you tell me, if that office had not been created, then what would have happened next? It would have been chaos. We wouldn't have a country. So you had to create an office of the Prime Minister, and when they share the power, it was supposed to be 50-50.
In consultation with each other. Yes.
Exactly. The President and the Prime Minister. He was given his ministries. The President had his ministries. You remember even Raila, when he went to the coast at one point, he said, Waziri mkuu anakuja, DC hayuko, Dio hayuko.